What happens when an undercover boss slips into his own restaurant to feel the pulse of his business, only to discover two boys whispering that he ruined their mother's life? That was precisely the question haunting Michael Barlow one drizzly evening in Crestview. He entered the front door of his flagship eatery, hoping to observe operations without standing out. Wearing a windbreaker, jeans, and a plain ball cap, he looked more like a low-key customer than the CEO. The hostess nodded politely, letting him choose a seat. Sliding into a booth near the back, Michael scanned the dining room. The place wasn't too busy, just a handful of tables filled with late diners. He wanted to see how the staff handled a slower crowd, whether they'd maintain good service without the pressure of a prime-time rush. He planned to order something simple, then wait and watch, but before he could signal the waitress, two hushed voices drifted from the booth behind him. One boy said, "Mom said this is the place. She said the man who ruined her life still comes here." Michael's stomach clenched. Ruined her life? He'd always tried to be fair, though he knew his early management style had been demanding. A second boy whispered, "I don't want to get in trouble, but Mom needs answers. She said it's his fault we had to move so many times." Michael hunched forward, pretending to read the menu. The anxiety in their voices drew him in, and he couldn't dismiss the possibility they meant him or someone on his team. He had parted ways with employees who felt mistreated. Could one of them be the mother these boys spoke of? A waitress appeared at his table. "Welcome to Crestview Bistro," she said. "I'm Laura. What can I get you to drink?" "Water's good," Michael replied, keeping his voice level. "Give me a moment before I order." He left, and he tilted his head slightly, trying to catch more of the boys' conversation. "I just want to see if he's here," murmured the second boy. "Mom said we should recognize him from a photo. She wants proof." The first boy lowered his voice. "Let's not panic. If he's here, we'll figure it out. I'm tired of seeing Mom cry." Michael felt a sudden wave of guilt. Were they talking about him, Michael Barlow, founder of Crestview Bistro? He recalled expansions, numerous hires, and a few tough departures. Still, how could he have destroyed someone's life without knowing? Laura returned with his water, and Michael placed a quick order, the house special. After she left, he braced himself. Part of him wanted to slip out unnoticed. But if it truly concerned him, he had to know. He rose and turned toward the boys' booth. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "You both seem upset. Is everything okay?" They stiffened. One boy wore a hoodie, the other had curly hair under a baseball cap. The curly-haired boy demanded, "Who are you?" "Just a customer," Michael replied. "I overheard you mention the owner. Maybe I can help." The hooded boy glared. "Do you know Michael Barlow? Our mom said he ruined her career." Michael's pulse sped up. He cleared his throat. "I've heard of him. What happened?" "She worked here years ago," the curly-haired boy said. "She had these recipes that made the restaurant famous, but he took all the credit. Then she got fired, or forced out, and couldn't get hired anywhere else." Michael's mind raced. He remembered hiring a talented cook named Angela who left under tense circumstances. Could that be her? "I'm sorry your mom's been going through that," he murmured. "Any idea when this happened?" 6 years ago, the hooded boy said. "She's never forgiven him. She wants to confront him, but she's scared. We're here to see if he still shows up." Michael felt sick. "Maybe I can talk to someone in charge," he suggested. "I might be able to help you find answers. How can I reach you?" The hooded boy scribbled a phone number on a napkin. "This is Mom's phone. She works a lot, so just text." Michael took the napkin. "I'll do what I can." He stepped away, heart pounding. The name Angela kept ringing in his head. He couldn't recall specifics, but the boy's story was too plausible to ignore. If mismanagement had led to her blacklisting, he bore responsibility. That weighed heavily on him. He paid for his meal, said a polite goodbye to Laura, and left the restaurant. The drizzle hit his cap as he stepped onto the sidewalk. No more pretending. He had to fix this. At his office the next morning, wearing his usual tailored suit, Michael called his longtime assistant Greta into the conference room. "I need you to pull old personnel records," he said. "Specifically for Angela Hayes from 6 years ago." Greta nodded, noting the urgency in his tone. "Of course, Mr. Barlow. Give me some time." Michael stared at the phone number on the napkin. He typed a short text. "Hello, Ms. Hayes. This is Michael Barlow. I'd like to meet with you to discuss what happened when you worked at Crestview. I'm prepared to listen and make it right if we failed you." He pressed send, nerves on edge. Hours passed in silence. Around 6 p.m., his phone chimed. "I'll talk, but not at your restaurant. Meet me at Corner Coffee on Maple, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Michael exhaled relief. She was willing to see him. That evening, Greta returned with Angela's slim file. A few standard reviews, an email stating she'd resigned due to creative differences, and no mention of blacklisting or stolen recipes. It seemed sanitized. Carl, the former manager, had handled many firings back then. Michael guessed Carl might have maliciously spread rumors about Angela being difficult. Guilt washed over him. He'd been so fixated on expanding the business that he might have overlooked how employees were treated. The next day, Michael arrived at Corner Coffee early, wearing a simple shirt to appear less intimidating. At 3:07, Angela walked in, looking older than he remembered. Her auburn hair streaked with worry, her eyes guarded. "Angela," he said, standing. She nodded curtly. "Michael." They settled at a small table. "Would you like coffee?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said. After a moment of awkward silence, Michael spoke. "I only recently learned you felt I wronged you. Please, tell me what happened." Angela's jaw tightened. "I joined Crestview as a line cook, then sous chef. I created some of the most popular dishes, but you took credit in interviews. I was working overtime for little pay. When I asked for recognition, Carl told me I wasn't team material. Then he fired me, though it was framed as a resignation. After that, every potential employer turned me down. It felt like I was blacklisted." Michael swallowed. "Angela, I had no idea how bad it was. I know that doesn't excuse anything. I'm sorry. If Carl acted on my behalf, I should have stopped him." He took a breath. "I want to make this right. I'll offer you a position as head chef and give you credit for your contributions, with public acknowledgement of your role." She looked skeptical. "A job? After everything?" "Not just a job," he clarified. "The position you deserved. I'll publicly clear your name and pay restitution for lost wages. I know it won't fix years of hardship, but I'm willing to try." Angela's eyes flickered with unresolved pain. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "But I need proof this isn't just a PR stunt." He nodded. "Take all the time you need." A week later, she agreed to visit the restaurant early, meeting a few staff members. Michael introduced her to Dane, the current head chef, explaining that Angela was integral to the bistro's beginnings. Some staff seemed puzzled, but he'd prepared them with a short briefing. Mistakes were made, and he was rectifying them. They toured the upgraded kitchen. Angela remembered the cramped old space and ran her hand over the new stainless steel counters. "It's bigger now," she observed quietly. "You helped build the foundation," Michael said. "You deserve to see how it's changed." Angela told him she had consulted a lawyer friend. She had grounds for a lawsuit over potential blacklisting and intellectual property theft. Michael replied that he would accept legal accountability if necessary, though he preferred a fair agreement. She negotiated for a solid contract with creative control, official recognition, and a public statement restoring her reputation. Michael drew up the terms and Angela eventually signed. He also arranged a press announcement inviting local reporters. On a Wednesday morning, they gathered outside Crestview Bistro. Angela arrived, wearing a black chef's jacket, her boys watching from a distance. Michael addressed the small crowd. "Thank you for coming. I want to reintroduce Angela Hayes, who helped shape Crestview Bistro from the start. She never got proper credit. That was my failing. I'm thrilled to announce she's returning as head chef, with full acknowledgement of her contribution." A modest applause followed. Angela gave a short statement of her own. "I didn't expect to be back, but I'm here because Mr. Barlow is taking real steps to correct the past. I'm grateful for the chance to move forward." Afterward, they fielded questions. Some reporters asked about the old recipes, and Angela answered politely. Michael felt relief seeing her finally recognized. In the following weeks, Angela and Dane collaborated on new dishes, blending her creative flair with his techniques. A few staff members were wary, but Michael held an all-hands meeting, explaining that any friction should be addressed honestly. He wanted a new atmosphere of transparency. Over time, the tension eased. Word spread about the redemption story, attracting customers and media interest. Angela's boys sometimes visited, shyly eating dinner in the dining room. They no longer looked at Michael like an enemy, though they remained cautious. One evening, he saw them in a booth, sampling a dish their mother had created. He approached, smiling. "How do you like it?" The older boy shrugged. "It's good. Mom's pretty happy here." Michael nodded. "I'm glad. If you ever need anything, let me know." "I really mean that." They gave him small, polite smiles. Angela called her sons over to show them the kitchen's dessert station. Michael watched them, an ache of remorse blended with hope. Bit by bit, the bistro's culture shifted. Michael realized he needed more personal engagement with employees. He opened new communication channels, scheduled monthly staff forums, and encouraged people to speak up about any issues. The brand's reputation improved not just because of the food, but for its healthier work environment. One Saturday afternoon, Angela led a community cooking workshop. She demonstrated a roasted squash risotto, a dish that combined local ingredients and her signature style. Attendees asked about her background, and she told them, with measured pride, how she got a second chance. Michael stood at the back, relieved that her talent was finally recognized. That evening, as things wound down, Angela's boys showed up with fresh peaches from a local stand. They begged their mom to make a cobbler. Michael, spotting them, offered the bistro's kitchen for a quick baking session. A few off-duty staff joined, peeling peaches and mixing batter. Soon, the aroma of cinnamon and fruit filled the air. Afterward, they gathered around, tasting the warm dessert. The younger boy grinned wide. "Mom, this is so good!" Angela ruffled his hair. "Thank you, honey. We should do peach turnovers next." Michael smiled. "Count me in." He took another bite, contentment spreading through him. This was what he'd always wanted, a place that felt like a supportive community rather than a sterile business venture. Later, Angela walked out with her sons. She paused by Michael. "Thanks for letting us use the kitchen. The workshop went great." He nodded. "I'm proud of you, Angela. You've brought new life here." Her gaze softened. "I'm finally feeling at peace. It's strange, but good." He wished them a safe drive home, then lingered outside, locking up under the glow of a street lamp. The night sky stretched overhead, the city quiet around him. He remembered how a single discovery, two boys whispering about a man who ruined their mother's life, had shaken him to his core. Without that, he might have kept living in ignorance, unaware of the harm he'd allowed. Now, redemption guided his every decision. He'd learned how vital it was to listen, to see the people behind the profit margins. Back in the day, he emphasized fine dining with a personal touch as a catchphrase. Only now did he understand that personal touch meant treating employees like human beings with aspirations and fears. Over the next few months, Crestview Bistro saw a surge in both staff satisfaction and customer loyalty. Local bloggers wrote about the unique story of Angela Hayes returning and Michael's efforts to make amends. The transformation was tangible. More open dialogue, more employee engagement, and better menu innovations. Angela thrived, speaking confidently in interviews about her cooking philosophy. She credited Michael for owning up to past mistakes. "Forgiveness is a process," she told one local paper, "but we're building something better that's worth every step." As for Michael, he embraced a new style of leadership, ensuring that no contributor went unrecognized. Employees felt safe suggesting ideas, knowing they wouldn't be sidelined. He felt lighter, unburdened by the old illusions of success without accountability. Sometimes, he recalled the hush in the booth that fateful evening, the heartbreak in those kids' voices. That memory kept him focused. If he ever slipped into old habits, he'd remember how easy it was to cause unintentional damage. Months later, Angela organized a community food fair, bringing in local farmers for a farm-to-table event. She demonstrated a show-stopping herb-crusted chicken, sharing cooking tips with an eager crowd. Michael watched with pride. Cameras flashed, capturing her confident smile. At day's end, Angela leaned against a makeshift counter, sipping water. Michael joined her. "Well done," he said softly. "I think the fair was a hit." She nodded, cheeks slightly flushed from the heat. "Thanks. I never thought I'd do this again, not in Crestview." He met her gaze. "I'm glad we made it right. You deserve the spotlight." Angela smiled, a soft, genuine look. "I'm starting to see that now." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and pink. Her boys ran over, grinning about the fresh produce they'd collected. Angela laughed, promising them another special dish at home. Before she left, she looked at Michael one last time. "Thanks for giving me, and them, hope. I believe you've changed." He offered a small, earnest smile. "I won't let you down. That's a promise." After she left, Michael stood under the soft glow of the streetlights, letting the evening air wash over him. The transformation was complete. His undercover moment had forced him to confront the truth about how ambition can overshadow compassion. He could have ignored it and continued reaping the profits, but those kids refused to let him hide. Now, Crestview Bistro was more than a restaurant. It was a testament to second chances, to standing up for people who deserve recognition, and to the belief that true leadership involves humility. Angela's success became a beacon of collaboration, and the staff learned from her resilience. Their new approach, transparent, respectful, improved everything: the food, the reviews, and the overall atmosphere. In the quiet aftermath, Michael would sometimes picture the old signage outside, reading, "Fine dining with a personal touch," and realize how hollow that slogan had once been without authenticity. Only by facing his past and embracing a new mindset did he fulfill that promise. On certain nights, he stayed late, walking through the empty dining room. He'd recall hearing the boys whisper about the CEO they blamed. He'd recall Angela's tense expression when they first met at the coffee shop. Then he'd think of her radiant face at the community fair and the staff who now felt heard and valued. He understood that redemption is never just about covering your mistakes. It's about moving forward, changed by the knowledge of what went wrong. It's about giving credit where it's due, letting people's talents shine, and ensuring a culture that doesn't stamp out their voices. As the months turned into a year, the restaurant gained greater acclaim, not just for excellent dishes, but for a story of renewal. Locals talked about the place where a chef once wronged had returned, forging a partnership with the owner who'd finally seen the light. It inspired other businesses to examine how they treated employees, reminding them that real success includes empathy. Angela was interviewed for a food magazine feature. She spoke of heartbreak and perseverance, praising Michael's willingness to correct the record. "I'm still healing," she said, "but I appreciate the chance to stand in my own spotlight." Sometimes, the hardest journeys lead us to the best places. Michael read those words, feeling a swell of gratitude. He'd grown into the leader he should have been from the start, someone who realized the people behind the recipes mattered most. He recognized that a handshake and apology only go so far. Sustained effort and open collaboration create lasting change. In the end, the moment that shifted everything was that rainy night, when he overheard two young voices blaming him for their mother's tears. The truth can arrive at the strangest times, shattering illusions and exposing neglected responsibilities. But it can also pave the way to a richer, more meaningful path. Now, each time Michael entered Crestview Bistro, he saw staff members greeting him with genuine smiles. He saw Angela conferring with Dane over a new dish, brainstorming seasonal variations. He saw those two boys, sometimes helping their mom rinse produce or plate desserts in the back, their eyes gleaming with pride. And he felt relief, because the quiet tension that once shadowed the restaurant was replaced by a sense of family. He realized how easily he could have let ignorance and ambition drive him forever. But those whispers woke him up. Undercover or not, he'd learned that being a real boss means kneeling beside your team when it counts. Being a real leader means listening to the hard truths, no matter how painful. So if anyone ever asked, "Why did you go undercover?" he'd smile wistfully and say, "To understand my own company better." But in his heart, he'd know the more profound reason. Sometimes we need to step off the pedestal to see the people we've overlooked. We need to listen to the stories that reveal our own shortcomings. Only then can we transform a place from a cold enterprise into a genuine community. Michael hoped that was the lasting legacy of Crestview Bistro, that every person who walked through its doors would sense the humanity behind the business. He hoped Angela's story would inspire others to pursue their dreams without fear of being silenced. And he hoped his own transformation would remind CEOs everywhere that real power comes from uplifting those who contribute to your vision. Because in the end, a restaurant is more than the sum of its tables, walls, and menu items. It's the people, their ideas, passions, and resilience who make it come alive. Michael finally understood that truth, and it changed everything.